Johnson had always been a product of the streets he walked on. Born in the heart of Brooklyn, raised in a cramped two-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, he grew up surrounded by the hum of the city, car horns, subway rumbles, and the occasional shouting match from the corner. His mother, Denise, worked double shifts at the hospital, and his father had left when Johnson was 6, leaving behind nothing but a beat-up leather jacket Johnson would later wear until it fell apart. School was never his focus. He was smart, but restless. If something didn't grab his interest, his mind would drift. Teachers called him unfocused. Friends called him laid back. But deep down, Johnson knew the truth. He just didn't care enough to push himself. Life was easier when he didn't try too hard. That started to change the day he saw Ayanna Brooks. It was early evening, and Johnson was leaning against the brick wall outside a corner bodega, sipping on an orange soda, half listening to a friend ramble about a dice game they'd just lost. Ayanna walked by with a gym bag slung over her shoulder, sweat glistening on her forehead, eyes fixed ahead like she was chasing something invisible. Johnson's friend whistled. She didn't even glance over. Later, he learned she was a competitive wrestler out of Queens, and not just good, she was one of the best in the state. Ayanna had a reputation. She didn't waste time on people who didn't take life seriously. That stuck in Johnson's head like a splinter. For the first time in years, he felt something pushing him to be more than the guy leaning on the wall. He showed up at her gym the next week, unannounced, asking if they had beginner classes. Ayanna didn't even look surprised, just handed him a waiver and told him to grab some wrestling shoes. The first day nearly broke him. His lungs felt like they were on fire, his eyes like dead weight. Guys half his size tossed him around with embarrassing plays. He went home sore, bruised, and humiliated, but he came back. Every day, weeks turned into months. His natural strength started to match his growing technique. Johnson wasn't the fastest learner, but he had stubbornness in him, a refusal to quit, even when his body screamed for it. The coaches noticed. Ayanna noticed too. Their conversations started as quick nods after practice, then turned into post-training chats. She learned about his mom, the laundromat apartment, the father he didn't remember much about. He learned about her dreams, to coach young wrestlers one day, to build something lasting. 2 years later, they were inseparable. Their wedding was small, held in the back of her uncle's Caribbean restaurant, the smell of jerked chicken mixing with the sound of laughter. Johnson's career took off. He dominated local tournaments, then national ones. He was flown overseas to represent the US in international meets, collecting medals and sponsorships along the way. For a kid from Brooklyn who used to drift through life, the cheering crowds were intoxicating. Ayanna, once his equal on the mat, stepped away from competition when she became pregnant. Johnson promised he'd be around, that they'd raise their child together. But the momentum of fame pulled him away. There was always another tournament, another paycheck, another country calling his name. Then tragedy struck. While Johnson was in Europe for a championship, their son was born with severe complications. He needed a rare blood type, Johnson's, for an emergency transfusion. By the time Johnson landed in New York, it was too late. Ayanna couldn't even look at him at the hospital. She didn't need to say the words. Her silence screamed that he had failed them. Within weeks, she packed her things and moved to Harlem, cutting off contact. The years that followed stripped Malik down to nothing. He stopped competing. The cheers faded. The sponsorships vanished. He spent his savings opening a small community blood bank in Brooklyn, determined that no other family would lose a loved one because help came too late. It was there, 5 years later, that Andre Collins walked into his life. Andre was a young fight promoter with more ambition than money. He had started a hybrid MMA wrestling league that wasn't doing well, and he wanted Johnson in the cage to draw crowds. Johnson refused instantly. He was done with the spotlight. But Andre didn't give up. He came back, again and again, learning Johnson's story piece by piece. One night, he pitched him differently, not as a way back to fame, but as a way to keep the blood bank funded for years. Johnson couldn't sleep that night. The idea of fighting again twisted his stomach, but the thought of securing the blood bank's future pulled harder. He agreed. Training was brutal. Johnson was older, slower, and every injury from his wrestling days came back to haunt him. His coach, Curtis "Ironjaw" Bradley, was a retired UFC fighter with no patience for excuses. Curtis pushed him to exhaustion, teaching him Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, clinch fighting, skills Johnson had never needed in pure wrestling. The first fight was a mess. Johnson won by sheer grit, surviving a storm of punches to out-grapple his opponent. The next one was cleaner, then another. Soon, clips of his fights were blowing up online. The story of the washed-up wrestler making a comeback for his community was too good for the internet to ignore. Then came the championship bout. His opponent, Rafael the Cobra Silva, was an undefeated Brazilian striker known for finishing fights in under 2 minutes. Johnson took a beating in round 1. His vision blurred, his ribs screamed with every breath. Between rounds, the doctor warned him he might not make it through another. And then he saw her. Ayana was in the crowd. For the first time in years, their eyes met. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't looking away either. Johnson stood up before the bell, heart pounding. Round 2 was different. Johnson closed the distance, nullifying Rafael's striking. He pressed him to the cage, wore him down, and in the final minute, locked in a rear naked choke. Rafael tapped. The crowd roared. Malik didn't celebrate, he just looked at Ayana. This time, she smiled. In the weeks after, they began speaking again. Slowly, carefully. The prize money funded the blood bank for the next decade. Ayana started coaching young wrestlers again. Johnson stayed active in the community. A year later, they had a daughter. Johnson held her in his arms, thinking of the son he never got to see grow up. He couldn't change the past, but he could fight for the future. And for the first time in his life, Johnson wasn't running toward glory or away from pain. He was running towards something real. In life there will be many ups and downs. You never give up. You should never lose hope.